I've been planning to talk about this unusual, strange condition, Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, mad cow disease, similar kind of spectrum of condition, and prions, these very strange proteins that are infectious. And I've been looking at this for a long time because I had the very unusual experience of literally coming across this in a patient. And it doesn't, you don't forget it once you've seen it. And I've always thought that this was going to be a problem, but I've kept it close to my chest largely because it is a scary topic. Nobody likes to talk about it. Nobody wants to think about the ramifications because the implications are potentially so serious. So, why am I talking about it now? Well, it caught my attention because of this article from The Independent. You'll notice that this was on the 14th of April, 2025. This is a very important piece of information, and they were looking that there were a number of people in Oregon who died from this condition. And I'll be going into more detail at another time with this and listening to what the family had to say, but it triggered the fact that I need to talk about it. And so, if you want to hear about this, please remember, look at the link below and join me at this Eventbrite presentation. I can be far more direct and clear as to what's going on and what I'm thinking about it. So, if you are interested to understand, please click on the link below. This is a nightmare of a condition. And just to give you a little bit of an insight into it, I have tried to think of ways as to how to explain infectious prions. And one of the things that people may be able to grasp is this idea of a zombie. We have these movies about zombies, and zombies can they just need to touch you or bite you and you become a zombie as well, and they've made huge movies about it. Well, this is kind of like what a prion is like. They're like zombie proteins. They touch other proteins, and these other proteins become zombie like as well. It's absolutely incredible in terms of what it is. So before the presentation, I am going to be taking some time to try and explain the background to this. And one of the papers that I'll be using to help explain that is from this here Yashui Iwasaki. He's from Japan. And in 2017, he did a really good paper summarizing the characteristics about Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, and essentially, and he highlighted here, I've highlighted in the paper, proteinaceous infectious particle. So it's a protein that is infectious. Now, at that time, there approximately was 1 to 2 per million, and it can be classified as sporadic, acquired by infection, or familial. Now, because it's so rare, people think that this shouldn't therefore happen. And it is a very, very serious condition because it is so rapid in terms of the dementia. And that's the bit that I want you to think about carefully. The speed of deterioration with CJD, I suspect, is far more rapid now than it used to be. And there's a reason for that. And it's again tied with the fact that, as I said, if you come to the presentation, I can be a little bit more direct about what I think is going on. But let's simplify it, because when I shared this on a post somewhere else, boy, people got upset, scaremongering, and they didn't realize I've been sitting on this for about 3 to 4 years, thinking about it and waiting, knowing that based on the science, I think that this is inevitably going to be a challenge. So when we look at the science, I'm going to give you one part of the science, and this is from a paper in 2020. Now, the reason I start with this is because it's very important that people don't presume it's just an elephant in the room. It's a very important point. Certainly, the elephant may be involved, and I'll come to that at a different time, but this is far more complex than that. And so here is the paper from July of 2020. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease in a man with COVID-19. SARS-CoV-2 accelerated neurodegeneration. Remember the date, July 2020. So at that point, the main points that they said is the patient whose first manifestation of CJD occurred at the same time as the onset of COVID. And so they think that the inflammatory cascade of COVID accelerated prion disease pathogenesis. Now, as I've been saying to people, this is a beast of a virus. We've never seen anything like this before. We don't even know fully what it can do. And this is pretty serious. And this is why I'm highlighting that don't underestimate ongoing circulation of the virus. If it hits the right or the wrong people, this is absolutely frightening what it can do. So what they then looked at, and I thought I'll quickly give you an idea as to how aggressive this is. When we look at the time frame, this was a 60-year-old gentleman. He developed fever for several days. So that was probably the COVID infection after somebody in his family was diagnosed with COVID. He then became confused. He slowed down. He became forgetful. And then they found that he was positive for COVID. In 2 weeks, his disorientation worsened. Then he was having speech difficulties. His gait went unsteady. And then he was having funny fist clenching of his right hand. They then admitted him. He was inattentive. He had speech problems. He had impaired comprehension. And he had jerks of his arm. This is within a month. And when I speak about what I saw firsthand, the speed of deterioration was like nothing I had ever seen before. This is why I'm saying that this is pretty important because, and I'll cover this in more detail in the presentation, but I've already looked at the diagnosis numbers of CJD across, say, the UK, and the numbers are falling. And so people would say, well, that's a good sign. I say, no. It probably means that the disease is going so quickly that there is no time to investigate it. And so what you have to look for, remember, dementia normally takes about 10 years, 5 to 10 years of gradual progressive deterioration. If you are seeing a disease where the deterioration is exceptionally quick, weeks, months, one of the first things we have to think about is the possibility of prion disease. So this is important stuff. And as I said, this is just the first test point so that I'm making you aware that coming up here is this presentation. Over the next week, because it will be on Thursday, the 24th of April, 7 p.m. UK time. Over the next week, I'll be having a few more presentations because it's hard to put it all together if you don't understand some of the basics about the disease, about the brain, about the characteristics of the presentation. And when we think about what it does to the brain, it technically makes holes in the brain. And I've got here a picture of what the brain looks like. This is from the same Japanese paper, which I'll go through in more detail at another time. This is what it does to a brain. in a short period of time. And at the moment, we have no real way of stopping this. And so the implications of it are pretty serious. As a final point, some people say that by talking about these things, you're just making people scared. Well, I hope that by now, if you know what I talk about, sadly, we are ahead of the curve very often. And just because people haven't caught up with it yet doesn't mean that it's not relevant. And at the end of the day, risk mitigation means that you have to consider the worst outcomes. And this is one of them. This is probably, as I said, the beast of the outcome. Final thought. There are two reasons. One of the reasons was that I saw the paper in Oregon, the article. The other reason is that from someone who is working quietly in the background, some of the scientific community, they have found that there appears to be prion-like proteins. At the moment, this is just off the record, but they have appeared to find that kind of pattern potentially in some of these strange clots. For those who understand what I'm talking about, you will understand why this is important and why this flag is so serious. We are in difficult times, but being unprepared is not going to help you. So remember, final point, as I said, join me in the next week, depending on when you're watching this. Let's talk through this in some more detail, and look out for me talking in more detail to break down the background of CJD so that you are better prepared to understand the science when we talk about it in the near future. Have a great evening.